The difference between a good mix and a great record is the final mastering stage. Let's look at some compression techniques that can help your mix cross the finish line. The SSL bus compressor is on so many hit records because it does its job transparently and effectively. Many engineers put the bus compressor across the entire mix before the track ever gets to a mastering engineer. I'm a fan of putting the bus compressor on early in the process because compression alters your perception of balances. The louder the music, the more aggressive you need to compress. Here I have an SSL compressor across our track. Watch what happens when the drums come in.
Wake up, feeding off that same buzz, sipping on something dangerous.
Here's the track without compression. And with. Here are the vocals and guitars and mid-range instruments come forward. Listen to that in the intro. Especially the guitars. Without and with.
Wake up, feeding off that same buzz, sipping on something.
So the SSL compressor reacts differently with different ratios. So experiment a little bit with that and the threshold. If you're looking for a more aggressive sound, the API 2500 has a great tone.
Wake up, feeding off that same buzz.
Here's without
on something dangerous.
And with.
Yeah, we about that life. Break loose, snapbacks and them tattoos.
Without
we got nothing left to
and with.
lose. Yeah, gonna do it right.
So you hear that very punchy and aggressive mid-range, which can work really great on certain tracks. If you're looking for a warmer, more vintage sound, the Puig Child is your move.
Wake up, feeding off that same buzz, sipping on something
without
dangerous. Yeah, we about that life.
And with.
Break loose, snapbacks and them tattoos. We got nothing left to lose. Yeah, gonna do it right.
You can really hear that low end hugging the track and the whole thing sounds warm and rich. Bus compression helps frame the final mix and makes it sound finished. It's always best to get the sound of the mix right before mastering. But if you need a little help, the linear phase EQ is the perfect tool for the finishing touches. Although heavy on the processor, linear phase is the right tool to use because it maintains coherency between the adjacent frequency bands better than other plugins. It works much the same as other EQs, but it has more filter choices for accurate surgery. The graphic display can be a big help understanding these different modes. They'd require a great deal of study to really truly understand each one, but as a musician, just use your ears to decide which one sounds best to you. Remember, we're not trying to reinvent our mix at this point, just trying to put a final touch of makeup on our beauty. There are two different processors in the linear phase EQ arsenal. Broadband, which covers the entire audio spectrum, and low band, which zeroes in on the low frequencies for more surgical accuracy. This is showing you what I might do in a typical mix. A boost in the overall high end for sparkle, a surgical dip in the upper mids to avoid harshness, and be careful here not to make things too dull. Another dip in the boomy area around 300, and a small bump in the booty band between 50 and 200. A hard filter takes out unwanted noise below 32. Well, let's hear that in our mix. It's without and with. You can really hear a difference in the vocals and especially in the bass. So linear phase EQ is your best choice for that last touch-up of the overall tone of your mix. To finalize your mix to a competitive level, use the L series to limit the peaks and raise the overall volume. Since digital audio is restricted to a maximum of 0 dB full scale, your mix can only be as loud as will allow the highest peak of the music to reach 0 dB. The apparent loudness to the human ear is the average between the peaks and valleys of a wave's volume, known as RMS. If you use a limiter to lower the peaks, you can effectively raise the apparent volume by raising the RMS. Wave's first limiter was called the L1, and then through refinements of the algorithms and sound quality, subsequent releases were named L2 and L3. These are all single-band limiters and treat the entire sound as one source, reacting whenever the threshold's crossed to lower the peak. The lower the threshold, the louder the overall average volume. Let's listen. This red indicates how much limiting is going on. You can only limit so much before audible distortion occurs because the peaks will become clipped, so be careful. With the introduction of the L3 multi-series, Waves allows different amounts of limiting on different frequency bands. This is important because the limiter can target the area where there's the most energy, specifically limiting that frequency and allowing the rest of the frequency range to breathe normally with its natural dynamic. This allows limiting with less distortion and artifact. Different bands are reacting differently depending on the content of the music. Like the C series, each band has its own controls, threshold, gain, etc. You can use the priority parameter to target or not target specific ranges in the music that are better off with less limiting, like the low end in the dance track. Watch this band as I change the priority. Less limiting or more limiting. So for a dance track, I might prioritize that low mid band so the kick and bass can be stronger. Use the choices of release parameters to fit the genre of the music you're mastering, and use a meter like the WLM to read the final results. Compare your work to other commercial releases in a similar style to make sure your final level's competitive. The L3 multiband limiter is a great tool for achieving a professional mastered level of your final mix. Thank you for watching the course and congratulations for making it all the way through. I hope you got a lot out of it and some of it sparks new ideas and new creativity for you. These are my techniques, and the more you work with it, the more you develop your own techniques. Feel free to experiment. Mixing takes practice. It's really a lifetime endeavor, and there's always room to learn more. I've been mixing for over 25 years, and I learn something new with every single project I work on. It's part of the life and part of the fun of being in music. Don't be afraid to listen to other mixes. Try to figure out what's going on with them and compare them to your own. It's the best way to learn. Use the factory presets that ship with Waves as a starting place. They're designed professionally, but all presets work differently on different source audio, so be prepared to tweak. Check out the music by the artists whose songs I use for the demonstrations. Their generosity made it possible for me to share techniques that I hope resonate with you and will inspire you in your own work. For more information about me and my work, please check out my website, davedarlington.com, or friend me on Facebook in 2 different places. Search for Dave Darlington or Bass Hit Studios. Thanks again for watching, and good luck with your mixing. I'll see you on the channel.